Hi, friends. Perhaps you've heard the expression, orange is the new black. Well, today I ask the provocative question, is dumb the new orange? I think it is. If orange is the new black, then dumb is the new orange. It seems like the world got super dumb the last year. Like, oh. I mean, when the United States of America was left with no choice but to vote for an ESFP, and he was running against Hillary Clinton, he knew that shit was going down the drain. I mean, ESFPs should never be in a position to make any decisions about anything. They're not capable decision makers. They should never be in a position to have authority over anyone. They're not capable of that sort of thing. You know? They're not responsible enough. They're just too dumb, to put it simply. Dumbness offends me. I don't need people to be high intelligence. I just need them to not be impossibly dumb. You know? I'm not looking to hang out with geniuses or anything. I don't expect everybody to be an intellectual or anything. Not at all. But, mind-boggling dumbness. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know what to do about it. I keep going back to this Facebook post that I read the other day from an ex-assistant coach of mine. It was, his father had just died. He said, I just lost my father to COVID. The doc said he was going to be fine, was on his way to a full recovery. Then the heart failure came. COVID had nothing to do with his father's death. His father had a heart attack. That's what I mean by mind-boggling dumbness. I'm so sorry for his loss of the ability to think. It's like a disease. Dumbness. When you see everybody around you say incredibly dumb shit about COVID, all of a sudden everybody else starts saying incredibly dumb shit about it. Am I sorry for his loss? I probably wouldn't have even noticed long enough to remember. It's like, obviously, when somebody dies who's close to you, it's tragic, which is what makes it even more offensive. It's like, why would... Let me jump on this bandwagon. I got a decent amount of sleep last night, but That's my butthole, Winston's mom. My butthole is a smart shade of blue-green. It's cerulean. My butthole is. The rest of me, well, look, I am not disputing that COVID was a contributing factor in a lot of deaths. I've got elderly parents too, you know. Yeah. Dustin Salisbury, you've got an excellent point there. I mean, you say, I wonder if the problem with mind-boggling dumbness is largely about the false appearance of capacity. Like, if a person can form a complete sentence, I wrongly presume the capacity to reason. Yeah. Right on the nose there, Dustin Salisbury. The thing is, of course, there's the conflation as well, and this is absolutely rampant. There's the notion that it's incredibly common that it's more important what people assert than why they assert it. In other words, well, he's on the same side as me, so we must agree or something. Of course, you're only on the same side with me if we agree on the reason. If we disagree on the conclusion but agree on the reasoning, then that's one of those rare points when you can say, okay, we're going to have to agree to disagree. We agree with all the reasoning, but the conclusion has some interpretive element to it that allows us to disagree on the conclusion. At that point, then there's nothing more you can do. It's just an interpretive difference. That's why reasoning is so much more important than conclusions. What's the Dunning-Kruger effect? The Dunning-Kruger effect is the belief that for shit that you don't know anything about, that you are much better at it than you actually are, or that you know a lot more about it than you actually do. The thing is, the biggest problem is when you're talking about reasoning, there are two types in particular who are extraordinarily subject to broad Dunning-Kruger, which is to say, they're Dunning-Kruger about everything. And those two types are ESFP and ENFP. And the reason they are is because you can't put me in a box. You can't tell me what I know and don't know. Yeah, it's meta Dunning-Kruger. And so that's why, like, Trump was a disaster from the very get-go. You know, I read all the speculation. Is he insane? No. He's an ESFP. They're like that. That's just how they are. I've read so many things or heard so many people talking about how questioning Trump's mental health. There's absolutely nothing wrong with Trump's mental health unless you think all ESFPs are crazy. Wrong? What's wrong? Which part of what was wrong? You have to be a little more specific than that, Katie. No, Trump is not a smart man by any meaningful definition of the word smart. Again, Katie, this is why I begin with this stuff. Whether or not you agree with whether he did a good job or not on X, Y, or Z is totally irrelevant. Okay? Nobody's saying he made all bad decisions. Nobody's saying all his policies were bad. But every insightful person who knows anything about the world and human beings agrees the man's a fucking moron. I mean, there's no denying that. There's just simply no denying that. It's like you can praise him in lots of ways, and you can criticize him in lots of ways. But there is no piece of criticism that is more factually correct than the guy's a fucking idiot. I mean, he just is. I mean, he certainly got a lot done in his 4 years. Note, I did not say he didn't face a challenging presidency. I mean, that's very much my criticism of Obama, actually, is that Obama got overwhelmed, whereas Trump did not get overwhelmed. Trump was too dumb to get overwhelmed. Trump just assumed that where shit wasn't as he felt like it should be, it was the other person's problem, necessarily. I think of Boris Johnson. Who's Boris Johnson? I don't know who that is. So are certain types less susceptible to Dunning-Kruger? If so, what's the rationale? I think everybody's susceptible to Dunning-Kruger to a certain extent. But, like, I know I am. Oh, is that the new UK Prime Minister? Looks like I'm a little out of touch with well, out of touch with the times, huh? I'm usually pretty good about world leaders, but when you said Boris Johnson, I thought first I said, why are you talking about the leader of the Polish the Polish anti-communist movement? And then I realized, oh no, that's Boris Yeltsin. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand it, impeachment 2 weeks out either. I don't understand it at all. What's the fucking point? I mean, the thing is, it's talk about dumb. Talk about dumb. But Winston's mom, if they successfully impeach him, then Pence is president and can pardon Trump for everything he's done heretofore before leaving office. Good job, Democrats. Great work. Great thinking. Oh, wait, no, terrible thinking. That's not the point, Katie. The point is that it's about how you think, not your conclusion. Okay? So a smart person who hates Trump doesn't try to impeach him right now for the reasons I indicated. A smart person who loves Trump wants them to impeach him right now for the reasons I indicated. Note, both smart people disagree about the outcome, but they're both smart because they have the right reasoning. I agree. Gen Xial. I agree. But make him do that. And this is the thing, is don't do other people's argumentational work for them. It's basic debate coach 101. Put him in the position where he has to do that. You know, keep the ball in the other person's court is the rule, as a general rule. I think it does absolve him from New York State cases. I think it does. Fortunately, the great news is, KD, when we're looking for a president, we don't need to worry about abrasiveness or goldenness of heart. We need to worry about competency and smartness. You want to talk about a heart of gold? Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter had a heart of gold and was a terrible fucking president. Oh, unless KD, you're a huge Jimmy Carter fan. KD, again, are you ignoring everything I am saying? Oh, is it Gen Xial? Okay, I stand corrected. When Gen Xial corrects me, I don't even bother double checking it. I just he's right. I'm sure he's right. Because what I am saying is, it is not about his policies. Although I have exceptions to plenty of his urgent need to destroy the institutions of democracy was offensive to me. But the point is, let's look, KD, and think for a second about COVID. He came out initially, he was correct about it. Is that what's important? No. Why did his narrative not fly? Because he doesn't respect words. And he gave the wrong reason. What was his reasoning? A hunch. That's why he's super, super dumb and the worst president ever since Andrew Jackson, the last ESFP president. Okay? Again, doesn't matter the policies, because what matters is why. Listen, 3DR Nomad, that's a conspiracy. You tell them to put that appendix back in. Do you know that the dominant elite collect the appendices of people all around the country and inject it to keep themselves perpetually young? Right. I mean, look. Okay, so Katie, let's say there were anti-racists parading through Chinatown protesting Trump's travel ban. I am not trying to give credit to other idiot movements that oppose Trump. I think BLM, for example, has to be it married the stupidity of the COVID alarmists, and they had the most evil Antichrist child in history. The most offensive thing that's happened during the last year probably is the mainstream media playing apologist for BLM gatherings while concurrently freaking out about other gatherings because of COVID. It's one of the most offensive things I've ever seen in my life. So do not think that my reality-based assessment of Trump prevents me from making reality-based assessments of other stupid people. BLM and defund the police are examples of really lousy branding. I totally agree with that. That's a really lousy branding. Yeah, I know. I don't think I don't think people who self-identify as black are very active in BLM. I think it's mostly people who self-identify as white and have FI. I'm not going to be a terrible white person anymore. No, I hate myself. No, you go in front of me, black person, please. Can you imagine? It's like what I keep pointing out is the obviously important thing. Stop reducing other people to members of a group. If they had just called themselves anti-Western agitators, they wouldn't have gotten anywhere. Well, that's true. Reality-based assessments of stupid people would be a great title for a bill. It's my one-act play. It's my version of the vagina monologues. It's just this list of people that I think are stupid. Number 7, Dr. Phil. What the fuck? Well, you know. I mean, I just point out to them that they're talking to a black person right now. Because probably that moment is when I'm going to switch races again. Being transracial is so useful. It subverts every single race argument you ever encounter. It completely, like, people's minds and faces break when you tell them that. It's like if somebody brings up race, you go, well, yeah, see, I'm fluidly transracial. They go, it has too much for them to process, you know? They don't know what to do with it. Because by all of their own rules, they can't just shit on it, you know? Katie, you're obviously emotionally attached to Trump in some way. You see him as the good guy side versus the problem. What? Oh, you're talking about the transracial thing? Oh, well, you got your FI in there. Horseman alerts, so that's fine. I get it. A lot of people have their FI in that. Horse Mumbler is definitely one. He's attached to the idea that, you know, having ancestry somehow conveys legitimacy to racial identity or something. Well, I mean, who else is making racial arguments? Horse mumbler. I've not heard anybody but an extremely low caliber person make a race argument. Well, my word means what it does mean. I'm fluidly transracial to the extent that elements of identity, such as race, are subjectively determined. And since it's not your place to tell me what race I am, this is within the purview of my legitimate claims. And of course, you're not addressing it as I actually claim it. You know, you're strawmanning me a little bit. So there's a number of things that I do that you don't like, Horse Mumbler. Some of those things you're correct about. Like when I don't think you're making racial arguments. I didn't say you were making racial arguments. I said I've never heard anybody but a low caliber person make racial arguments. What does race justify? I didn't say I'm anti-Trump or pro-Trump, although I hate him. But that's not the point, right? The point of my being fluidly transracial is to drive home that you are conferring onto me a race. That it is not me who has a race. It is you who are conferring onto me a race. And when everybody gets that, then I'll stop having to use this rhetorical trick. You haven't successfully pointed that out. I made up the term fluidly transracial. So right, so Lauren Cuthbert, my point is that you confer race onto people based on your expectations. Me? No. I can't. Well, that's my point, Horse Mumbler. I don't think anybody's using the word race meaningfully. But at this point, Horse Mumbler, you should be conceding defeat, not asking me to define it meaningfully, since your earlier claim was that I'm using words as they do not mean, right? So now it's time to acknowledge, okay, I was wrong about that since you made up the term, Eric. No, Horse Mumbler, you remember you're the one who's actually making the claims here, in the sense that you are saying you've made the claim that I am using words in ways that are contrary to their meanings. And I am saying, prove it. And that's perfectly fine. You have the burden. Okay. It's time to bust out the racism real block again. I got to break this out occasionally for to remind people of the truth about race. Jones 2015C. Tag, there's no scientific basis for race. There's more difference among so-called races than between them. Any attribution of the status, say African American, is wholly arbitrary. Quote, people have different complexions, but that's a far different thing from saying that people with different complexions actually comprise races of people. Scientists have certainly tried for a long time to prove that there are different races, and it's all been disproven. It's bunk. Today, we even understand that there is more genetic diversity within the so-called races than between them. The anthropologist Carol Mukhopadhyay writes about how things we think of as demonstrating a biological basis of race are just not true. Quote, in the United States, the sickle cell gene is more common among African Americans than other populations, but it is not a racial gene. The genetic variation that causes it is also found in parts of South Asia, Southern Europe, and the Middle East, and it is only found in some parts of Africa. When we turn to the racial category Black, Africa has hundreds, if not thousands, of linguistically, culturally, politically, and historically distinct populations. Africa is home to the shortest and the tallest people of the world. Other traits vary significantly, including skin color, facial traits, nose, eye shape, overall body shapes, even frequency of sickle cell and lactose intolerance. The problem with Americans' folksy way of defining who's who based on skin color is that skin color is not a discrete trait. There's a spectrum of gradation of skin colors, and so marking off at an arbitrary point at which to say someone is paler than this is one thing, and someone darker than that is not a naturally occurring division between people. Boom! That card's a meaningless straw man. Who am I straw manning? You are using words fast and loose this morning, sir. I am disappointed. Who am I straw manning? My point, Lauren Cuthbert, is that number one, in any political conversation, race can never be used as a good justification for anything. And number two, that that it is you who is conferring your notions about race onto me. It is not something that I have. I mean, 23andMe is a great example of about how race doesn't exist. So, like Rachel got her 23andMe, and she's % Scotch Irish and % and 4% and 1% Chinese, and it's like, well, which of those are races? Or is Scotch Irish a different race than Italian? Look, I just read a card. Watch my boy, when you and I disagree, sometimes you're right. It's usually about something like my joking is carried on for too long. That I'm not being NI enough as a media maker in some sense. When you're right, when we disagree. When we disagree and it's not about that, I'm almost always right. And this comes from realizing that, there's a couple spots where you and I don't see eye to eye, and having thought about them for quite some time, it's, this is the primary area, and I think maybe you disagree with me about evolution as well. I'm not sure, but I think you really avoid my points, and your principal objection is things are more complicated than that, which is not a meaningful response. Or that race is precious to people. I'm not disputing that. A lot of people think that race is precious to them. They make it part of their identity. I think that's dumb, but whatever. To each their own. Okay, Katie, again, like I'm saying, you're not disagreeing with me necessarily. I'm saying race is something you confer onto me, not something I have. So it is true that race gets conferred onto people all the time. That's true. As does a bunch of other stuff, as does all sorts of, we pick up on all sorts of cues to project identity onto somebody before we know them. And I think that the race is one of the more toxic ways in which we do that. It does not claim that colors equals race. It says this is one of the folksy ways that Americans distinguish between races. I'll read it to you exactly. I mean, now you're quibbling and dissembling because it doesn't say that, but you don't want to deal with it in all of its complexity. You are actually strawmanning. I don't think anybody's saying skin color equals race. That's part of the problem. If we were to say, let's taxonomy human beings into 5 races. If you fall within this shade of skin color, this race, blah 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 blah, the lines are drawn arbitrarily, but we're using one criterion to determine race, then it would actually mean something, but it would be arbitrary completely. Instead, we use a confluence of different factors to justify some sort of racial claim. But ultimately, race is something conferred by people onto others, not something they have. So because it's arbitrary like that, I get to say I'm fluidly transracial. I don't say I'm fluidly transancestral because ancestry is something that can be genetically identified, whereas race is not. How many races are there? Can anybody answer me that question? I've heard 5 before. I would suspect we normally agree, Nicholas Watson. You just periodically shit on me for some reason. I don't assume your silence to typically mean disagreement. How do they check that almost instantly? I'm not expecting anybody to do anything. I'm not telling other people what race they are. Okay, if I'm not telling other people what race they are, and I can't tell blacks to take off their race, why can you tell me that I can't be transracial? Until we deal with race in this country. Again, race is something that you confer onto others, not that they have. I do have a say. I am fluidly transracial. That's my say. Oh, so there's been a group vote taken that's declared me not fluidly transracial, and I have to abide by it? Why? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. It's factually untrue as well, right? Why does it have to be socially verifiable? What happens if you can't socially verify that I'm fluidly transracial? I mean, certainly there's plenty of instances of me making the claim. I'm not erasing history. My point is people who think that race is real are playing right into the hands of the slavers. You see, back when some Europeans wanted to enslave some Africans, they made up this reason called race to justify why those people didn't have rights. So, unfortunately, people like MC Drama Bear are furthering their agenda. You're furthering the agenda of people who want to have subhumans. So, I mean, yeah, if you want to side with this, if you want to side with evil, then go ahead and embrace what you're saying. Because that's what it is, evil. It's an arbitrary distinction that people confer onto one another. It's based on but it affords you no meaningful conclusions you can draw. No, you are using your emotions to avoid the truth. So I see MC Drama Bear. You're telling me that evil's arbitrary, but race isn't. Everything but race is relative, right? Right. Yeah, I get what you're saying, Nicholas Watson. Yeah, we you know, when you come here in the live chat, I treat you as a person. That's it. I treat you as a person. Now, if this were a situation where it were like a video conference room and I could see all of your faces, should I treat you differently then? Because of how you look? Because I perceive you as having some race? Should I treat you differently? Look, I know slavery is not race related. I get it. I understand that. Slavery existed well before notions of race existed. Right. So the question is how best to oppose it? How best to oppose this make-believe bullshit? Is it to say, no, my make-believe bullshit instead? Or is it to go, oh, that's just make-believe bullshit? Those are your choices. It's a totally ahistorical argument about slavery. So you're telling me that race was not used as an argument to justify slavery in America. Are you trying to claim that race was not used to justify different laws for different people and assorted civil rights violations in America? Are you genuinely trying to tell me that? If that's the case, horse bumbler, then why in 1921 did the federal government, specifically Congress, define a white person so that it could continue to be the case that they could have segregation in the South successfully? Here's what they came up with. A white person has been held to include an Armenian born in Asiatic Turkey, a person of but 1/16 Indian blood, and a Syrian, but not to include Afghans, American Indians, Chinese, Filipinos, Hawaiians, Hindus, Japanese, Koreans, Negroes, nor does a white person include a person who has 1/4 of African blood, a person in whom Malay blood predominates, a person whose father was a German and whose mother was a Japanese, a person whose father was a white Canadian and whose mother was an Indian woman, or a person whose mother was a Chinese and whose father was the son of a Portuguese father and a Chinese person. That's what happens when you try to define race. That's the kind of stupid fucking nonsense that happens when you try to define race. As the United States federal government did in 1921. Why did they do that? Why did they define race in 1921? Why did they define race in 1921? Because Plessy versus Ferguson case. What people often don't remember is that Plessy, his claim was that he was a white person and he was being deprived of his property by being forced to ride in the colored coach. The United States federal government didn't want to address the reality that race isn't a real thing, is made up bullshit. And so instead, they tried to define it. And you see the mumbo jumbo of nonsense that spills out when you try to define race. Okay, I agree. In this instance, I'm not talking about I did not give an example of race being used to justify slavery. Instead, I gave an example of race being used to justify segregation. I will now find an example if you're still actually making the claim. But at this point, Horse Mumbler, you're beginning to lose my respect. Right? Do you really need me to provide you an example of race being used to justify slavery? That's true. So you define it. You define white person for me, Horse Mumbler. Forget trying to define race. Forget about that for a second. Let's not define race. Let's just define white person. Go ahead, Horse Mumbler. Is my daughter white? Check the definition. Okay, so she doesn't have 1/4 African blood, but she does have 1/4 Native American blood, American Indian blood, I guess you'd say, because Mexican Indian blood, you know? Her mom's Mexican, but mostly Mexican Indian. So I guess she qualifies as white. It doesn't cover that area right there. It doesn't say what if the dad's fully transracial and the mom's half Mexican. Okay, no, Horse Mumbler, I'm not playing fast and loose with your words at all. You were correct. The inability of those people to define the term does not constitute invalidity of the term when properly used. Okay, so to have a proper use, it needs to have a definition. You define white people. Well, you did make the claim that it was a term that could properly be used, or at least that you're disputing my claim that it can't be properly used. You're when you're at the bottom of the hole, quit digging, Horse Mumbler. Horse mumbler, you said the fact that those people can't properly define the term isn't an indication that it's not a valid term when properly used. Okay, well, I am making the claim that it's not a valid term, that there is no proper use for it. So you give me a counterexample. You define white for me. You give me proper uses of the word. Since you're so insistent that it's the case, what are the proper uses of the word then? Okay, horse mumbler, again, let's not lie to each other, okay? I won't lie to you, haven't so far. You don't lie to me either. You said the inability of those people to define the term does not constitute invalidity of the term when properly used. Okay, I agree with you. But I nevertheless am making the claim that it is an invalid term that has no proper use. Do you dispute that? You made the effort to dispute it there. Then define the term and use it properly. Hi, Gerontius. Define the term in an operationalized way, such that I can use it to determine whether somebody else is white or not, as Congress did. If it's not operationalized, it's not a meaningful definition as far as I'm concerned. If you can't define it such that I can use it to tell whether somebody else is what race they are, then you're not in disagreement with me. You're just pouting. And making my morning unpleasant, which is probably much worse. Do I think some things can't be explained yet we have words for them, making it hard to get a definition for them? Well, I mean, it's funny. There are some kinds of things that are fairly unique arguments. It's hard to find other corollaries. Abortion's one of those, and race is one of those. It's hard to find another corollary of things that work like this. There are certain things that have weird relationships linguistically. We have weird relationships linguistically. Evolution and God are things we have really weird relationships with linguistically. So we constantly talk, when we speak of evolution, people continually speak in reification fallacies, which is to say, we talk about our genes wanting something or our species wanting something, even though those things aren't agents and can't actually want things at all, right? Or have goals or have preferable or less preferable outcomes. Similarly with God, God is the only thing that we ever have we have discussions about the existence of. In other words, anytime we're arguing about something, we're arguing about a named thing for a reason. Except God. When we're arguing about God, we're arguing about whether this named thing exists. And that makes it a kind of a unique argument, right? Abortion is a rather unique argument because there's no other corollary really. When you try to adjudicate the question simply on the grounds of rights, then abortion is morally prohibited. But at the same time, it definitely doesn't feel like or seem like or appear to be that some woman who takes, say, Plan B has committed murder. It certainly doesn't feel like or seem to be that a woman who gets an abortion after being pregnant for 3 weeks is committing murder. So, at the end of the day, there are times when our intuition conflicts with our reasoning. And I think race is one of those areas. Intuitively, we've all become very accustomed to the idea. And it seems as though it's obvious that race exists, that race is real, that people suffer from racial inequities, that people are treated differently because of their race and stuff. My basic position on that is the solution is not more race, it's less. Boy, that's a nifty workaround there, horse mumbler. That is a nifty workaround indeed. White, a phenotypical distinction that is often misconstrued as a race and as a determinant factor in detecting the same. Certain races can be described as white and others can't. I see. So, what race do people perceive me as? What race do you perceive me as? So, what race am I? I'm Caucasian? Because I'm from the Caucasus or what? Horace Melmore. Okay. Now, if you want to call your family a race, fine. Then I guess you got me. Because Horace Melmore, you see, can claim to be of the race of whites, as I am actually descended from the family named White that migrated to Massachusetts in 1620. So it's an actual valid use of the term. You got me. You win the point. But you had some information that I didn't have at my disposal, so I can't really get mad at myself. I didn't know you were descended from the whites. If I had known that, then I wouldn't have gotten myself into such argumentational trouble there. Hornbumper says he perceives me and my daughter as being of the race Strauss. Well, you know, just to let everybody know, for those of you who don't like the fluidly transracial thing, my daughter is 100% with you. She absolutely hates it. She finds it terribly offensive. As she said she said something the other day in a live stream. She said that my dad is very woke in so many ways, but in other ways it's just like, like what? Like your transracial thing. People find it offensive. As long as people continue finding it offensive, my work is not yet done. You know, if you find that offensive, then hopefully it'll infest your brain. I need to send my daughter to Cobra Kai tougher than her. She's tough as hell, dude. Did you watch any of the streams with her? Man, you want to talk about a self-possessed woman. She is she has much more presence, I'd say, in front of the camera and dealing with the live chat and stuff than I do. She's quite beta quadra. Yeah, Sensei Lawrence doesn't put up with that woke shit at all. I agree with you. The thing is, I hate the term woke. I find it correlates very strongly with people who don't think well in general. But it's been co-opted so much by so many that it's hard to say that anymore. In general, my daughter thinks pretty well, but she's young and she's more liberal in her thinking than I am about certain things. And she has some boundaries, like things she doesn't want to argue with me about. The thing is, neither Delilah nor I want to spend our time together having any conflict with each other. She and I are as close as two FI polar people can possibly be. Which is to say, I almost never think about her. But I feel such a deep connection with her because we're both FI polar. It's always been the case. Like once you became a teenager anyway, for sure that, well, it's always been the case that we want to do what we want to do now, and we don't want expectations and burdens put upon us, and we don't want to be stuck in emotion. So our disputes and fights or whatever have always been quick flare-ups and then immediate reconciliation and no hard feelings. And it's, we both sort of instinctually have always understood it is not fair to make another person stay in an emotional state, to feel emotions for too long. And so it's always been this this weird commonality between us. Like, if there's a holiday thing, it's always like, she's like, I got holiday responsibilities. And I'll be like, okay, well, I'll see you whenever. Doesn't matter. You know, like, we're on the team that says, let's make life easy for each other. And everybody else is on a team that says, expectations. Is forgetting details on small things when you are working on a task SI polar? No. I have SI fourth. I forget small details all the time. When working on a task, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Like, I'm not sure. But when Delilah and I see each other, we feel a great sense of affection for each other. And when we don't, like, increasingly, we're trying to spend time together. And it still almost never happens. But there's this beautiful thing that happens where, like yesterday, I think it was last night, or no, maybe the night before, Delilah had a tire that was kept going low. It had a slow leak. Okay, so remember, distracting me. So she had a slow leak in her tire, and she called me at one point earlier in the day and was like, "Can you help me with this?" And I said, "Well, what you need to do is just get your can of Fix the Flat." And I tried to tell her how to do it, and she said, "Okay, I'll get it. Can I come over and you put it into the tire, because I've never done it before?" And I said, "Sure." She said, "I'll come over. We'll hang out for a while, and then you can put that in." But her errands or whatever ran long, and so she called me and said, "I'm just gonna pull up into the driveway, and you just come do it, and I gotta bail right away, okay?" It's like, "Yeah, of course, no problem." And there was no hurt feelings for a second. I had already forgotten about the fact that she was coming over, and I certainly wasn't counting on spending time with her or something like that. But it's there's a mutual appreciation of that quality in each other. Like, I was happy to see her, happy to help her. She was going out on a date. She said, "Oh, shit, I'm supposed to say that." She specifically told me, "Don't say that." I mean, who's going to see this at an hour, 8 minutes into this live stream, right? Fuck. Well, I'm going to have to confess that I did. I'm going to have to take this live stream down after I'm done with it. I almost never do that. If somebody tells me don't talk about something, it almost never happens. I'm very good about that, but I just fucked up. It just seems so banal, I guess. It didn't worry. Think about it. Okay. Do I like being controversial? No, not in and of itself, but I do like being correct. I used to more like being correct about something that everybody is incorrect about. So, for example, I used to argue periodically about McDonald's being healthy. And people would always say, "What? McDonald's isn't healthy?" And then by the end of the conversation, they'd agree that there's nothing uniquely unhealthy about McDonald's. it's no less healthy than making burgers for yourself at home. And there's no particular reason to think it's particularly unhealthy. I don't know if people really feel so strongly that McDonald's is unhealthy anymore, because it was sort of like one of those, supersize me kind of ENFP obsessions, that one that became viewed more as within its appropriate scale in the face of all this other crazy shit going on, Shit, seal. So do I like being controversial? The thing is, I only like being controversial when I'm right. I don't like being controversial for its own sake. I do like being right about things that everybody else is wrong about. But more precisely, I like having the correct argument that people haven't heard before. So, for example, when I argue abortion, I say, look, the issue is we need to determine the status of the thing inside the woman as either property or person. If it's a person, then abortion should be prohibited. If it's property, then that comes with certain things too. But regardless, before we can even go any further in the discussion, we need to define it as one of those two things. And then we can come up with two possible conclusions, contingent on which of those assumptions you want to sustain. So it's like if in fact it's a person, then there's no reason to conclude that it has any fewer basic rights than a born human does, just because stage of development doesn't seem to be a meaningful criterion in that regard. So if you were to assume it's a person, then we'd have to say that abortion is morally prohibited. That doesn't necessarily mean we should make it legally prohibited. There's a difference there. But the thing is, we argue each of these points out as its proper step. And then we end up with a set of conditionals that give us realistic choices that are predicated on certain assumptions. I don't care, frankly. It's like, I really don't care. People get so emotional when I talk about abortion. Incredibly emotional. Yeah, my name's German. Actually, my ancestry is, as far as I can tell, on both sides, German as far back as I can go, which is on my mother's side is the Brandstetters and the Schneiders, and then my dad's side was the Strausses and the what's it called? Shanks. So those are all German names. You wouldn't think of Shank as a German name, maybe, but apparently it is. My dad comes from the Pennsylvania Dutch. Now, people in the rest of the world may not be aware of this, that don't live in America, but the Pennsylvania Dutch is not populated by Dutch people. Okay. It's very confusing, but the Pennsylvania Dutch area was populated by Germans, and they became like the Amish and the Mennonites and stuff. My dad is like two degrees less severe than the Amish. So he was raised in a family. There's the Amish, and then there's like some other thing, and then there's Church of the Brethren, which is Amish without any of the Amish shit. You know, that's what my dad was raised as, is Church of the Brethren. So, of course, he grew up to be an atheist, quite a devout atheist. Yeah, well, abortion's a TI clusterfuck, right? But the thing is, that's why we keep it conditional, and our goal be to eliminate people's stupid arguments. What's an ENFP fad? Thinking McDonald's, like anti-McDonald's because it's an unhealthy corporate entity or something. Stupid ass shit like that. When I was in Hawaii, I saw a guy walk down the street and his shirt said vegan AF. And it was like tie-dye or something. And I was just like, ENFPs do everything wrong. I saw another person in Hawaii who had a shirt that said Gigi Allen was right. And I thought to myself, man, ENTPs are cool. It's like, no to vegan as fuck. But Gigi Allen was right. Because, of course, that guy doesn't actually think Gigi Allen was right. It's just a wink to people who know who Gigi Allen is. Defund the police, ENFP fad. Right. I know CJ O'Connell, but most people don't know who Gigi Allen was. It's like there's nobody you could say that nobody like if you're wearing a shirt that says Gigi Allen was right, nobody should believe that, right? You'd have to be silly to believe that you think that. Causing chaos since 1995. Can you tell my mom's an ESFJ? I used to have a bumper sticker on my car that said "Nuke a gay whale for Jesus." When I was in college. Nuke a gay whale for Jesus is a pretty good bumper sticker. You know, to my surprise, I still think to this day, I'm like, not bad for college age Eric. That's like the only bumper sticker I had too. It wasn't like I had a shit ton of bumper stickers. You have a pretty extensive collection of playing cards. You have close to 100 different decks. That's cool, Eric McAllister. That's a cool thing to collect. I like that. I used to have a shirt that said, "My name is Eric." And I would continually be surprised by people coming up to me and saying, "Hi, Eric." Like, "Hi?" And they point to my shirt and I'd be like, "Oh, right, I'm wearing this shirt." Well, let's just say he didn't have the most healthy relationships with women. Hi, Rachel Apollosa. I'm sorry I didn't greet you yet. I saw you earlier and I was in the middle of pontificating about something. I may have been mad at Horse Mumbler at the time. You know what would be cool? Would be to get a high quality 8-track player and get a bunch of 8-tracks. I wonder if you can get contemporary music still made on 8-track. Like, could I, instead of pressing CDs or printing vinyl records, could I make 8-tracks? Because when I was a kid, 8-tracks um, were still common in cars. Like a lot of people who had cars had 8-tracks in them, even though it's like when I was pretty young when they stopped making them. But anyway, why do you suck at approaching women? What can you learn from me? What type are you, Gerontius? Because it kind of matters what type you are as to whether or not anything that I might know about it would apply to you or not. There are many ways to suck at approaching women. I don't think I would be particularly good at approaching women. My nature is such that I go up and talk to people a whole hell of a lot. I don't know what I would be like if I didn't have a YouTube channel. It's like having a YouTube channel increases your dating capital dramatically. At least at least with people who watch your YouTube channel. Semi off topic, but the final VCR ever manufactured was a few years ago. Wow, they were still manufacturing VCRs a few years ago? That kind of shocks me, actually. Approach women with popsicles. Now, are you saying only approach women who are themselves holding popsicles? Or are you saying acquire popsicles and approach her with the intent to give her a popsicle? Just walk up to a girl you like and say something like, "Can I get your honest opinion about something?" That's such a good ESTP move right there. Both or either, or something to suck it ostentatiously in her presence. Yeah. So the thing is, that's one way to surprise a girl is to reverse the field on her like that. You go up to her and or you go like this with a popsicle. Yeah, that honest opinion line is pretty damn good. That is pretty damn good strategy right there, Eric McAllister. I believe in your ESTP hood. You could go up to her and say, "Hey, I'm about to pontificate. Would you like to listen?" No. Oh, sorry. Yeah, like in Cobra Kai, this ESTP lady character in Cobra Kai pulled a super ESTP move when she tried to pick up on Johnny. She came over and knocked over his beer at the bar and said, "Well, now you're going to have to let me buy you another beer." That's pretty slick, right? I was impressed with the ESTP-ness of that whole scene. if you're watching the third season, I'm on episode. I think we just finished episode 7 last night, or maybe even 8. We're taking it as slow as we can. It requires you to take it slowly because it's really intense. Like, I don't really want to talk about anything that might be a spoiler or anything, but it is gripping. And the weird thing is, when I first started this third season, I was like, it looks different, kind of. Like, I don't like what Netflix has done with this. It doesn't look the same. It's filmed differently or something. Yes, it gets better. Okay. Yes, it does, Eric McAllister, for sure. Okay. It was a little slow getting started. At the end of the first episode, I was like, eh. At the end of the second episode, I was like, but now I'm totally just I find it absolutely gripping at this point. So, Johnny Lawrence definitely ESTP. If you enjoy it enough and properly communicate the enjoyment, she'll get jealous and want popsicle too. You can tell her, no, you may not like my popsicle. When you say, why don't you have a second popsicle? Eat the one you're eating, really, really enjoying it. And then, hold it out like this. And when she goes, can I have that popsicle? No, I'm going to eat this one too. Yeah, right. There's a different popsicle you're going to have to suck first, baby, before you get this popsicle. Women are trying to move up in the social hierarchy, and they are going to place value on those men who have the most popsicles. That's my Jordan Peterson invitation. You got a third popsicle in your back pocket, melting away. It could be a very cold day. You should probably do this in the middle of winter to avoid melting related problems. Of course, the popsicle will be less appealing to her probably in the middle of winter. But you're welcome, CJ. I have more at my place if you really want one. You're a natural. You are an absolute natural, Eric McAllister. Is my father watching the House debate impeachment? I'm sorry. Is your father watching the House debate impeachment? I don't know. Maybe he watches various news channels periodically throughout the day. Yeah, he's smooth. He's a smoothie. You go up to a girl and ask her to explain to you what a high five is. I think that might be a good approach. Excuse me. I heard some people over here talking about a high five. Do you know anything about that? Is high five? Yeah, some sort of celebratory gesture. Apparently, it's related to the fist bump. What type does come to mind who does this approach? Hey, baby, what's up? I mean, I don't know who does that. I guess probably ESFPs. No, Trump's still president for another 7 days or something, 6 days. He's not officially done with his presidency yet. It's SI and ISFPs in the front or back stack. It's 6 slot. It's demonstrative, Rachel. She expects the world to expect it of her. In other words, she's worried that we think she doesn't clean herself enough. No, she ignores FE. She just criticizes herself. She's self-critical. She's always like, God, I'm not cleaning myself enough. If he gets impeached, he won't get his $200K. Ex-presidents get $200,000 a year. Personality types pickup lines video, like the one we did a few months ago. Well, I know, like, there was this guy who used to be around. I forget what his name was. I actually met him in person one time, but he was INTJ, probably, possibly ISTJ, and he really wanted a woman, but he kept trying to take this approach of, I just need to sort of structure the offer properly. Like, look, I'm looking for a woman who is willing to commit to a 1-year trial period. It's like, Jesus Christ. The thing that people a lot of times don't get, and I didn't get at all, is that, and one thing that an ESTP told me that seems very simple, but is something that I never really got, is first and foremost, hit on somebody you find attractive, like that you actually like them and want them, and that you're not, if you don't find them sexy, then don't bother. One term and done. One term. So I'm only doing one term, and I'm out of there. Taking my $219,000 a year and fucking bailing. Right. Exactly, CJ O'Connell. It's better to be rejected by somebody you want than accepted by somebody you don't. You guys Antifa types here? I don't think there are any Antifa types here. I don't know. I don't know the A and B face the same scenario. If A plays their cards in the most rational manner with the highest chance of success yet loses, while B plays the same hand in a way that defies logic and numbers and wins, who's the smarter player? A. Who's the more successful player? B. Who is the superior player? A. So the thing is, that is particularly that's another that's another one of those kind of unique situations, right? Poker is a circumstance in which the answer is B, because in poker, you're playing the person, not the cards, if you're playing well. So if you're talking about poker, then the answer is the person who has successfully read the other people and their habits and what they have best, they're the superior player. So I'm a pretty rational poker player, but I'm a bad poker player because I don't pay attention to the other people. The horse mumbler. I'm against capitalism because it doesn't work well for me. Legends Fall has the best answer to that question. The superior player is the one who plays in such a way that in a total series of games, he comes out ahead. One game doesn't mean anything. I won with a trick. My bets had nothing to do with my hand. Well, I mean, that's not a trick. That's playing the people, and that's purportedly how you should play poker. Like I said, I'm not a good poker player. I've even had somebody at a poker table, at a poker room, say out loud before, Jesus, you're easy to read. So, obviously, if you're paying attention to the other people, see, I never pay attention to the other people. I'm drawing pictures the whole time when I'm playing poker. I just look at my cards and I just play the hands, That's why I always lose, I guess. Well, unfortunately, I don't play very much poker. So I don't lose very much money because when I do play, I play at the $40 no limit table at Hawaiian Gardens, and I might buy in twice. Maybe I'll play at the 60, buy in twice, lose $100, Oh, they were cheating. Well, it was a trick, I think, because I didn't pay attention to them. I just betted a random proportion of chips that was never too extreme. Are ESFJs the least intellectual type? I think ISTJs may be a little less or equivalently unintellectual. ESFJs are not intellectual, correct? ISTJs are also not intellectual. But I guess the TE makes them a little bit more engineering. So I guess you could say ESFJs is the least intellectual. ISFPs are a little more intuitive, so they've got kind of a bit more of an intellectual feel to them then. Or, I guess ESFPs are the least intellectual. It depends what you mean by intellectual. ESFPs are the most likely to present themselves as intellectual without any actual intellect. ESFJs don't present themselves as intellectual at all. What if it's a death match? A dies and B survives? No, then A was better. I mean, B was better. Well, the problem with playing at a poker room, of course, is the rig will kill you. But it's cool to play in tournaments, live tournaments. But the thing is, it's actually quite challenging to play in a tournament in that there's pressure to be more aggressive as the blinds go up, you know. Let's do what George Carlin said, VNN. I don't know what George Carlin said to do. What's VNN? Eric, someone told me you were the beginning and end of cognitive functions. Is that true? No. I mean, it's not true that I am the beginning and end of cognitive functions. It is true that I said that. And that people who hate me like to jump on every hyperbole, especially FE overreach like that. Yeah, I already have recanted that. Literally, it is not the case. Is it the case that to the extent that cognitive functions are understood correctly right now, it is through my frame exclusively? Yes. That's the case. But remember, I'm not going to tolerate baiting from you. So tread lightly. I don't have much patience for ESFPs. And you got plenty of haters too, for some reason. Yeah. Haters galore. Well, Cloud, the thing is, when there are conflicting explanations for a single phenomenon or set of phenomenon, it's almost always the case that one of those explanations is right and the other ones are wrong. And that's the situation here as well. Now, it might be the case that nobody's happened upon the correct explanation yet, but my claim is that I have. You don't dispute it with inconvenience or just your ESFP bullshit. Are ISTPs the smartest sensors? Yeah, probably. ISTPs and ESTPs, you know. ISTPs are the most underestimated in terms of intelligence for sure. They won't interview well. You know, I worked with a student who was an ISTP for a while, coaching him and interviewing, and making very little progress because basically what his mom wanted me to do was to teach him how to use extroverted intuition, but it's not possible to do because he's extroverted intuition polar. But despite that fact that he had the conversational agility of a rock, he got a perfect score on the ACT. Wow. And the reason he needed to have interview skills was because he was applying to places like Harvard and Yale that do interviews. So how many people get a perfect score on the ACT? A few thousand in the whole country, out of millions and millions of kids who take it.
He's really hard.
And he's an INTP. But if you said, Eric, go have a conversation with this guy, come out of the room and tell me, on a scale of ESFP to genius, how smart is he? I said, but that's just because I'm mistaking NE as being part of intelligence. What about Rex Tillerson? I don't know who Rex Tillerson is. You score 34 on the ACT is perfect score or what? I don't know. I think Sean's saying that a perfect score on the ACT is a 34. I don't know what the 999 is. I mean, 99.9 percentile probably. Maybe instead we could discuss chain migration, like Melania's mother's father's sister et al., or her Einstein card.
Melania?
I don't know who that is.
Like Melania Trump?
I don't know.
People say that she's an ISTP. I think she's a mail order bride.
I mean, why would you pick her, though, if you're going to mail order a bride?
She had to do with Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't know why you would pick her. I don't know. She was considered a beauty during her...
Like Synchronic, you are wise to stay away from IQ stuff. You're not sure how right it is because it's not right about anything. It's just right about itself. Your IQ score is your IQ score. Your IQ score tells you how well you scored on the IQ test. That's all it tells you. Now, you can use IQ scores to correlate against various things that might give you information from a general demographic perspective, but that too tells you nothing about you. Also, remember this. I took an IQ test, the Scandinavian Mensa application test, and I got 107. So there you go. People generally think I'm smart, and my IQ, according to that test, is 107. So if you think I'm smart, then it goes to show you what IQ scores mean.
I think you're smart.
Thanks, Rachel.
You're welcome.
Here's the thing. It's like, I've talked to plenty of people who have much higher scores on their IQ tests than 107, but I'll draw my own conclusions about who's smarter, me or them, And I'm pretty unbiased about those sort of things, even when they involve myself. I have no problem acknowledging when somebody is smarter than me. There are plenty of people around here who are smarter than me. I appeal to them sometimes to help me solve things. But, and it's quite likely that they all have higher IQ scores than me too. But it's also the case that lots and lots of people have higher IQ scores than me do not qualify as more intelligent than me in any meaningful sense, from my perspective anyway. So, I really dislike things that are absolutely relative. Things like IQ scores and Big Five scores. Those are absolutely relative, which means they're only meaningful in terms of their own test frame. They are not expressive of general truth. People do not have those attributes. The big five attributes to them. Those are just taxonomies of how third parties view people. You know, it's like, yes, I already answered that question. Yeah, I think so. I think they are the smartest sensors. If you mean IQ smart, like standardized test smart, yeah, probably. I can't do that visualization shit, Skygear. The thing is about IQ tests, there are a variety of different tests that claim to test your intelligence, quote unquote. And depending on which variety of intelligence test you take, is going to depend on how high you score. So if I were to take a test, an intelligence test that prioritized verbal reasoning skills, I'm sure I'd score very high on it. However, I am particularly poor at visualizing things and turning them around in my head. If a test requires me to do that, then I'm not going to perform very well on it. If you describe a visual situation with words, then you should be able to do it at least some of the time. I mean, not something as complex as what you're talking about. Visualizing something, superimposing it upon something else. No, I can't do that. I can visualize some things like, for example, I tend to visualize certain cognitive function relationships in terms of shapes. So I think of them as being cards, like 8 cards. And I am currently kind of imagining a way to envision a shape that indicates how they're interacting. But I feel a powerful need to have objects to play with. Like I want blocks or something to figure it out. I really don't do well with visualizing at all. I'm incredibly poor at it. I remember when I was a kid, my mom said to me, you know, isn't it great how because she noticed I really love to read a lot. Reading is great, isn't it? Because it's like a movie's playing in your head. And I said, really? That's not what it is for me. I realized later that, I am kind of visualizing. But I didn't even realize I was doing it when she said that at the time. But I realized I do have images in my head of things, but they're not really like, for example, I have good images in my head about certain scenes from the novel I wrote, Gospel of the Pantheon. I spent a long time just in my head writing that book. When I was writing that book for a period of about 3 or 4 months, it took me. It was all I was doing. That's it. It was one of the times when I undertook a big project and I saw it through to fruition in a big chunk of time, like 3 or 4 months. I worked on it every day, and I was always in my head about it, even when I wasn't working on it. And having spent that much time in that world, I have pretty good images in my head as to what things look like. But, like, for example, the estate of the gods is based on this girl's house that I knew when I was a kid. That was meth fueled, yes. Yes, Freddie Fortunato. Hey. We're not pointing that out, okay? But there was plenty of math time that I didn't direct towards a single project like that. Most of my math time, I didn't do that. I wasn't that focused. I was all over the place, That does not invalidate it, okay? Just because I was on meth. Prior to ever doing meth, in my maybe I had done it, but I wasn't doing it at the time. Or maybe I hadn't even done it yet. I don't know. I wrote the Megalomaniacs, which is a novella, not on any speed. So I've done it not on speed as well. Life Synchronic says, I've heard meth intensifies sexual sensations. Well, for me, when I first started doing meth, I went through a brief fapping phase because, like, you can fap for like 6 hours. You can find yourself just because it makes you very like interested, but not necessarily able to conclude. So, but I tired of that pretty quickly and then moved on to basically making Pop Goes Lethal. If you want to trip out on, to whatever extent it still exists, if you go to the Internet Wayback Machine.
To travel down memory lane.
Internet Wayback Machine. And you put in popgoeslethal.com. I'll put this link here. Now, if you go to this Wayback Machine and you go back to 2004, 2005, 2006, those are the years when Pop Goes Lethal was active. And you can look at some whatever, crazy stuff. It was an interesting project.
I'm glad it still exists.
I'm glad the Internet Wayback Machine is here too. What is your problem? Slow poke. It's unfortunate a lot of the images and stuff are gone. But you can definitely still play around. Like, this is a funny page. Hi. Thanks for visiting Pop Goes Lethal. Mr. Strauss, who does all the coding for the site, is a little bit retarded, and we know it's hard to figure out which end is up around here. Now, this is from Matt. So I'm sitting in his house right now, forcing him to make this page because he's just too goddamn frustrating trying to navigate this mess. So here are links, descriptions to all the ways you can get around. Again, we apologize for Mr. Strauss's inability to organize the simple, basic navigational scheme. We thank you for your patience. Matt Cates.
Oh my gosh, some things just don't change.
Ain't that the truth? So this organizational, the old homepage, Red Ball Spit, sitemap. I kept making new sitemaps in different ways using different softwares and stuff. The old homepage. Let's see if the old homepage works.
Hey, Karate Girl.
Oh, there she is. There's Karate Girl. Now, when this works, it does. It still does it. It still does it. Oh my God. So I made this website, right? And I coded this homepage so that the girl threw these things like this. I was pretty good at using shit that's no longer allowed in coding, really, in like web page coding. But this is the old homepage, and you can see she throws our names. Yeah, and it used to have an audio thing that went with it too. Yeah.
How cute.
And our motto was reject aesthetic relativism.
It definitely does that.
Karate girl.
Pop,
Pop goes lethal.
See, if I had known, because like I was around, so what? This is 2003, 2004. I was in college, so if I had known of this website while I was, doing nothing in college, I would have had a playground.
Tremendously league. Yeah, well, unfortunately, 2006. What does that mean? Tremendously big league. What's big league. Guys, you aren't talking about my old webpage. Horseman Board Gen X, stop arguing with each other. We're talking about my old webpage now.
Yes, that's the topic on hand right
Click
now.
that link and look at the girl who throws the names, okay? I made that. I coded that page myself with Dreamweaver.
That's pretty impressive.
Thanks. I made a lot of cool stuff on that website.
The statue.
So, I guess about ready to wrap this up. I'm going to wrap this up like crap in a cup, as they say. Who says that, Eric? Lots of people say that. I'm going to wrap this up like crap in a cup, but first I'm going to play a song or two on the guitar. Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm going to play a song or two on the guitar. No, Bones Village.
Oh, you caught it though.
No, I didn't. It still spilled. I just caught it a little bit.
Could have been way worse. That's not bad.
Fucking Eric. God damn
Here.
it. I got some napkins right here. That's some well-seasoned bong water, too. Boy. Nobody would have identified that as water, I'll tell you that. What is Eric type CSJ? I think he's an ESTJ. Okay. Here we go. We're going to play a song. Oh, yeah. Everyone's going to love that. Ooh, he's playing a song. They're going to say, once I start. Santa Ana's from the east are blowing, driving on this mountain fire. Grant and Lana had best be going, they'd cut it down to the wire. Everywhere apocalypse hung heavy, truck was piling up with ash. Lana got the dogs in the Chevy, and Grant counted out their petty cash. If times are ending, then time is bending. Flames rain down from the sky. While the dogs knocked out, Grant exhausted, Lana stays awake to cry. 120 out but Labor Day, and that means cooking meat outdoors. I got distracted and fire got away. From Bradford to Arcadia, they cursed. Fire chased them west and down the incline until they reached the foothills below. Found a room cheap for the night online. At least now they had someplace to go. Tomorrow they'd evaluate their options now that their life had burned away. Lana's sister has a place in Laughlin. Wasn't really any more to say. If times are ending, then time is bending. Flames rain down from the sky. While the dogs knock out, Grant exhausted, Lana lays awake to cry. And a dog knockout, Grant exhausted, Lana stays awake to cry. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome. It's good.
Sammy has a story that need be told, and this is a song for an open road. Such a thing must always do its job. Married up Jeff, turned 19, 4 years and 3 kids, weary now and questioning the past. Agency outpaces discretion, locking in our courses, way too young. The urgency comfort is really just depression, making sure those underneath them always wrong. Doug at 20 thought bourbon fun, likewise Doug at 21, and so forth well up into middle age. Once it seemed to set him free, became his whole identity. Now Doug's about another drunken agency outpaces discretion, locking in our courses, way too young. The urgency comfort is really just depression. Offer you incentives, but they haven't got a thing that's fun. Everybody's panicked about the kids. Lock them up with extra dexedrine. Mathematics to impose possess, or impose more unjust duress. Agency outpaces discretion, locking in our courses, way too young. The urgency inferred is really just depression, making sure they're under them always run. Without consent, it's really just oppression. By parasites surviving on their wages earned by lying, while they feed their fear of dying. Yeah, let's feed upon the futures of the young. Thank you, darling.
You're welcome.
30,000 days, too many expectations, not even worth a damn. days and nights to sleep off the intoxication. Otherwise, you won't escape the plan. I've wasted half my days trying another's ways. Who can tell me my priorities? Is there anybody who knows the key? 'Cause I'm tired of doing it wrong. One direction and damn all along. Wait until I know. Or if that's just hesitation, clarity's no good once your chance is gone. What I need to show is it's so below my station. I'm tired of doing it wrong. I've wasted half my days trying another's ways. Look and tell me my priorities. Is there anybody who knows the key? Because I think I'm doing it wrong. Yeah, I think I'm doing this wrong. Because I think I'm doing this wrong. Doing this wrong. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for singing along as well. Please feel free to join in whenever you feel like it.
Okay.
When I was younger, it seemed that everything gleamed. I don't know what happened to me, but I've lost that sense of urgency, and I don't think that I'll ever see it again. If you follow my lead, you'll discover I'm loster than you, and you'll want to know the way to get back out to wherever it was you thought you knew. And tomorrow will be just like today. I'll be lost then too. It's a matter of mood as much as a matter of will. And the things I do and the direction I point to still seem a part of me, though departedly. And I wonder if I'll ever see them again. Thank you, darling.
Is that your own?
Mm-hmm.
That was your own?
My own?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this one of my songs. It's the one I have memorized, so I don't have to look at it when I play it. This one I always have trouble playing. I'm going to try it anyway. Too much noise in the data stream. Loud enough to disrupt everybody's dreams. Frustrations mean mistakes are made, until it seems everybody's just throwing shade. I won't be just another casualty of other people's well-intentioned rules. I used to think that some tomorrow there'd be time for yesterday. It's not the sort of thing that one can borrow. No one can tell to lend a day. Uncertainties implicit, just like an unexpected visit from a bunch of men all dressed in blue suits. contingent rules. I used to think that come tomorrow might be time for yesterday. Yeah. Thank you. I always fuck that song up. I need to work on it. I come back to Gerald later. First, I'm gonna go to Jesus People.
I have a request of not. It's not a song, but could we pull some tarot cards after for the last few days of Trump being a president?
Sure.
Thanks.
If Jesus was people but absent of sin, he must then have struggled with regular men and women, of course, when they too were present. Disciples all warily eyeing the lesson. If people were Jesus, they'd know as they think, and everyone's work would be true. Feelings once spoken would sit where they sink, and we all know just what to do. People aren't Jesus once they're betrayed. Easy believing forever is lost. Maybe naivete is not to be saved, but the wise pay terrible cost. Does virtue require a rational take, or is virtue that's reasoned invariably fake? Does musing itself just detract from the flow, or is it deliberate and slow? People aren't Jesus once they're betrayed. Easy believing forever is lost. Maybe naivete is not to be saved, but the wise pay a terrible cost. The one you thought you knew acts like you never have met the life you made for two has faded into regret. No one unshaken, we all have been shook. Being forsaken don't mean you're forsook. Though in the past we've been hung out to dry, find it at last if we're willing to try. People aren't Jesus once they're betrayed. Easy believing forever is lost. Maybe naivete is not to be saved, but the wise pay a terrible cost. Maybe naivete is not to be saved, but the wise pay a terrible cost. Thank you. What's the matter with Chad? Is he terribly bad? Is he very like Dan? Who's a terrible man? Is he sort of like Jill, who can't pay her bill? Or rather like Jack, she's stuck on the facts. What's the matter with Sue? Does she know what to do if they bring attitude? Will she show ingenuity? She talks about you whenever we go walking. What's the matter with Bryn? Is she living in sin? She's been hanging with Jim, he's looking terribly thin. What's the deal with Frank stealing fish from my tank, colluding with you, and he's talking to Lou? What's wrong with the ladies? What's the matter with men? From the feeling of Katie to the coldness of Sven. They talk about you whenever we go out. Paths that lead to lesser days, still at the overwatered pass, and to whoever's left, that's still okay. Tie the sails to the mast. Are you angry at Ken or at Neville again? Don't bother with Kev, he's practically dead. Just focus on Bert, he's medium hurt. What's a quandary for Liz? She failed a quiz. What's the matter with Drew? Will she know what to do? If you bring attitude, will she show anything new? She talks about you whenever we go walking. Paths that lead to lesser days. Spill out the overwatered pass. And whoever's left, that's still okay. Tie the sails to the mast. Each of us has much engravely sin. Throw up the hands, stiffen the chin. Catastrophe looms heavy overhead again. Time's gone will never be again, 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 again.
Beautiful.
Thank you, darling.
I'll get that song down one day. I'm telling you.
We'll work on it. Gerald has a thought. Gerald has a lot. Gerald has a plot to get the margarines, tater tots. He's got a good idea for a name change in business. Thinking now about what they'll call Christmas when they hire his firm to change that name. So Gerald always thought that there'd be chance enough to return to the work left rough. Get back to it eventually, but his visions piled up and his plans would interrupt all the work that started off so fully. Now his mind is back on his business, thinking of changing factless to listless. So how all the people will call his name. And Gerald understands ever more clearly now. He won't provide explanation regarding the why or the how. He'll see you and know you from inside your heart. Exciting Gerald plays his part. But Gerald still knew there's too much to do, and he dropped time in the underview. Too much to rebut, so where now and what? Tonight's time to get back in the stew with you. Gerald has a thought. Gerald has a lot. Gerald has a plot to get the margarines, tasty spots. He's got a good idea for an engine of business. Thinking now about what to call Christmas when they hire his firm to change that name. Gerald has a thought. Wasn't the best I've ever played it, but terrible. Every life lived reaches a time when the road splits in two. There are times, hard times, times of despair, times when it's hard to feel good. That's when I look for my sack full of solvency and my satchel of helpful goods. Satchel of helpful goods. Satchel of helpful goods. Satchel of helpful goods. Every life lived reaches a time when the road gets to the end. When I'm there, will there be anybody else around? Will I travel all alone? That's when I look for a sack full of solvency and essential, filled up with on. And that satchel, nothing but bone. Satchel of helpful goods, 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 satchel of helpful goods. Man. Amelia, go from that place. They come to you the details of your case. Amelia, when you rise above, floating ahead and soaring like a dove, what will they say when they look at you and move sideways in the place you're in? Sideways with your thirsty grin. Amelia, can't you see? You and I will never be Amelia, yet you're still free. With too much opportunity to leave out in the rain. Amelia, Amelia, we're watching you fail for sure. No matter what we do, Amelia, when you rise above, floating ahead and soaring like a dove, what will they say when they look at you then moving sideways in the space you're in? And silent with your thirsty grin. Amelia, can't you see? You and I will never be Amelia, yet you're still free. With too much opportunity to leave out in the, too much opportunity to leave out in the, too much opportunity to leave out in the rain. Amelia. I played that pretty well. I normally fuck that one up. Oh, he came here with her. And what's the big problem that you can't endure? It seems so sure you're not appropriate claiming to blame things on Scott. Despite getting caught, he's a got you refraining for him, training for him, going to the gym to make yourself good enough again. Yeah, you guys both have lots invested. That's not a reason to stay around. Through the years, you've both been tested. move up, find higher ground. Oh, he came here with her, and what's the big problem? Then that you're, yes, I'm so sure it's not appropriate blaming to blame things on Scott. Despite getting caught, he got you refraining for him, straining for him, going to the gym to make yourself good enough again. Be done with him. In contrast, I did not play that one very well. I played the one before that much better than I usually play it. That one I played not as well as I did yesterday. I fucked up in a few spots. Next, we've got El Nino. I'm playing the full set here.
It's great.
El Nino, my ass. You cold storms. Where is the rain? Those drizzles don't count. I drizzle more when I pee in the sink, which is just the right height to catch all of the undesired splatter. And when I'm done, I'll go outside and climb a ladder. And I will go up there, take me a bucket and pour water inside. And I'll say, hey, Mr. Cloud, won't you drop it from the bottom? Hey, Mr. Cloud, drop it from the bottom. Hey, Mr. Cloud, won't you drop it from the bottom on me? Thank you, darling. Next, I'm going to play this song. Just brooding here won't do any good, but brooding's more and more my style. I seek the cheery ways of standing where we stood, 'cause I've been stuck here a while. And that's despite a natural selfishness that makes it easy to have fun. But flutters in the gut become a fist as all my visions come undone. I tried to stay distracted in the afternoon away, but heavy new realities are breaking every day, and for a bit I am out of it. The reason still unsaid, still I need out of me what's inside my head. It seems like everybody's so sensitive, so ready to just get mad. I seek the simple ways of living like a kid, 'cause who wants to be the dad? Have we lost our sense of scope and scale, our capacity to laugh, the sense to know when not to wail and have to tip the golden calf? I tried to stream distracting to the afternoon away, but heavy new realities are breaking every day, and for a bit I am out of it. A reason still unsaid, still I need to get out of me what's inside my head. So I'm sad, sad for me, sad for her, and happily, and what you call sorrow I call home. Blues that sing clear down to the bone. Yes, still I'm sad, so sad for me, sad for her, and melancholy and what you call sorrow, I call home. Blues that sing way down to the bone. Thanks. I've got probably 2 more songs I think I'm going to play. Maybe 3, but probably 2. I'm going to play Agave Weatherman and Destruction of the Whole Damn World. And I might play Sheriff Shane Penn if I feel like it. You're living on a time frame I will never know. Alienation and humanity's soul. Imagine you a future after the collapse, returning to the urgency of isolated past. You're picturing community free of metaphysics, hunting buffalo while you're picking red delicious, knowledge of the seasons, wisdoms of old, fires blazing in the night to keep away the cold. Hostility is got to pay by what you think is on the way. Of life as children of the land, with an agave weatherman. Imagining a history that never could have been. You lecture at the college, advancement is a sin. Lamenting disconnection in every corporate act. Asserting all your feelings and ignoring all the facts. Hostility is kept to bay by what you think is on the way. Of life as children of the land, with an agave weatherman. You find modernity just so banal. Wish you had been born any time but now. Your experience won't run afoul of exceptions. You visualize nobility sipping on some port, or tribes of peaceful savages in beautiful comport. But few of history's people ever thusly did cavort, 'cause life was solitary, nasty, brutish, poor, and short. Hostility is kept at bay by what you think is on the way. Of life as children of the land, with an agave weatherman. With an agave weatherman. With an agave weatherman. Thanks. Second to last song. Actually, maybe I'm going to play this cover first. I like to play it so much. Even though I'm clearly lying when I play this song, given my fluidly transracial identity. Nevertheless, it's right up my proverbial alley in terms of musically. I wish I could get that thing to disappear. Whatever. Well, some folk call me a rambling man. I do a lot of thumbing and a kicking can. And it wouldn't do an ounce of good to call me names, because daddy's name wasn't Willie Woodrow. I wasn't born and raised in no killer, just a white boy looking for a place to do my thing. I'd find me a wealthy woman and a line of work that don't take no plumb. I ain't got much to lose, but lot to gain. Well, some might call me a good time fella, but I ain't no black and I ain't yellow, just a white boy looking for a place to do my thing. Yeah, I don't want no handout with no more any part of anything they're giving. I'm proud of white and I've got a song to sing. Well, said a few things and I'll admit it. If you want to get ahead, you gotta hump and get it. I'm a white boy looking for a place to do my thing. Some folk call me a rambling man, and I do a lot of thumbing in the can cans, and I wouldn't do an ounce of good to call me names. Cause dad's name was Willie Woodrow. I wasn't born and raised in no ghetto, just a white boy looking for a place to do my thing. I might find me a wealthy woman in the line of work that don't take me plumber, cause I ain't got much to lose but lost the game. Well, some might call me a good time fella, but I ain't no black and I ain't no yellow, just a white boy looking for a place to do my thing. Now I don't want no handout living, no want any part of anything they're giving. I'm proud of mine, I got a song to sing. Well, I said a few things and I'll admit it. If you want to get ahead, you gotta hump and get it. I'm a white boy looking for a place to do my thing. Yeah, I'm a small town boy, been around a little, and I like guitars and I like a fiddle, and that's the kind of soul it takes to fan my flame. Well, I'm a blue-eyed fella, kind of feared and ready, so I gotta work to be somebody. I'm a white boy looking for a place to do my thing. Yeah, I don't want no handout living, no want any part of anything they're giving. Cause I'm proud of mine, I've got a song to sing. Well, I said a few things and I'll admit it. If you want to get ahead, you gotta hump and get it. I'm a white boy looking for a place to do my thing. Just a white boy looking for a place to do my thing.
It's just so.
It's really, magic, isn't it? It just fucking pops along like it's, wow, what a great little song.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like there are a few there. I play covers a lot, right? I try to only play covers that I really love a lot and think are great. But that song right there makes me go, man, such a simple song, and so I don't think I've ever written anything that good. It's just so damn good. All right. Anyway, Destruction's the whole damn world.
That song, though, like it was like, I'm just putting it all out there.
I gotta say, also, it's like, as has been expressed before, I've never met a cover that I play so comfortably and it just fits so perfectly in my wheelhouse. So it's not just that the song's great; it's that it's like perfect for my style of playing guitar, perfect for my voice. It's weird. Oh, we need to know. We need to see. We need to pen happenings down by some means to judge a logic to life, we devisively unlike for which we rarely budge. People everywhere gather up enemies, outrage that cow, that is a sign. How do they set their priorities? These foreign backstabbing entities into win our big misery, following necessarily from the savage ways. Insulting, cursing, misery, we're stuck with such petty larceny. All partition the rectories and call it destruction of the whole damn world. To be shared now her limits, hoping to be able to be shared for 4 minutes. You just can't share things like they do. She always thought that she should have bought to when they had the chance to buy. She also forgot about shouldn't not, although she alcohol, she'll die. People everywhere gather up enemies, outrage that how there is a sign. How do they set their priorities? These foreign backstabbing entities into win our big misery, falling necessarily from the savage ways. Insulting, causing misery, we're stuck in popularity. We all partition the rectories and call it destruction of the whole damn world. Boom! That was too fast, but that was.
It was very fast.
It was too fast for that song. But I don't know, I guess I was feeling snappy today. Feeling full snap. Well, 17? No, 12 people. Okay, I thought. Like, I'm sure I must have lost half the people at least. Okay, thank you all for listening to my songs.
Can we do a Trump poll?
Oh, right, Trump poll, sure. We're going to do a Trump poll for the last days of Trump's presidency. How he feels right now, emotionally.
Oh, page.
Like his childishness with his thinking is getting him in too much trouble at this point.
Mm-hmm.
How is he doing spiritually? There's two of them. This is the top one. I just feels embattled.
So there's a lot of words.
And the other one
around.
was Ace
Oh,
of Swords.
wow.
Means he's also seeing this as a new opportunity to start over where he doesn't have to think anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And not that he ever was thinking in the first place, but now we're going to pull a card about his position, his current position, which I would say objectively is embattled. Knight of Wands. His expertise is probably Pentacles. And I think this means he's sort of down to his last wand.
Yeah.
Swords have failed him utterly.
I want to. Oh.
One
when
more.
you're done with this, I want to see just one card pull to see who's going to be the real president, Biden or Harris.
Okay, well, that's this last pull for Trump, which is Trump's takeaway. Will Trump grow from this at all? Trump's takeaway is just 4 swords that he's trapped in by swords on all sides. Thinking keeps being the problem. See that as a common theme here.
Yeah, the thinking part.
Thinking causing him just endless suffering and difficulties. Okay, so now we're going to pull a card for the Biden presidency. Who will function as the real president?
That is a clear sign.
It's a lady.
Yeah. The lady's going to be more of the president.
And you know, Kamala Harris is famous for dressing in purple sashes.
Oh.
Yeah,
so that's like...
one of her signatures is naked except for a purple sash. That's how she likes to go to dinner parties.
Yeah, she does.
People go, Camilla, are those your boobs? Yeah, don't worry about it. I got a purple sash. Yeah, that's Rachel. She's here in the background.
Hi.
Being beloved as always. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up now. Thanks a lot for being here.
I'll make you a cup of coffee.